it's really about understanding where they are today, so their current state, and where they want to be, so that dream outcome. And I think a lot of people think they are at a certain place and they think they want certain things, so then they create this bridge. But the reason why a lot of times it doesn't work out is because they've not fully understood the challenges that they have today. But sometimes you might need to see a therapist. Sometimes you might need to spend more time with your loved ones. And so you really have to think, what are the actual habits you need to do?
Welcome back to another episode of Wise and Shine. I'm your host, SG Budget Babe Dawn, and today I have Alex with me.
Hi everyone, this is Alex, and you can find me on socials, Alex Low Growth Mindset Coach. Today we are going to be talking about weight management.
Yeah, very exciting topic.
And this is a topic that goes on in the office, in the pantry, in the corridor, or wherever, right? With friends, family. It happens all the time. And we have an expert with us today. His name is Arun. And straight out of medical school, he became a health coach. So we have Arun today to tell us a little bit more about why he went that route and what is he doing for clients at the moment. Arun, please.
Thank you. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. Really happy to be here. Yeah, I think I'm really passionate about lifestyle as medicine. As much as we know about medicine in its traditional forms with medications, consultations, and surgeries, there's so much more that we need to understand on how to use lifestyle in the right way, the dosages of lifestyle, how long do we use it, what do we do when things don't work. So that's what I do with a lot of my clients, and a lot of the work that I do right now is about refining that process and contextualizing it to Singapore, because a lot of what we understand about lifestyle often comes from North America, Europe, UK. So we need to think on our Singaporean culture, our lifestyle, our food, our work experiences, how do we make it better for us?
And this is actually what I think most commonly known as preventive medicine or preventive health. I think Singaporeans probably understand, and it's also something that Health Promotion Board or HPB has drilled into us, right? Preventive
now, increasingly so. Healthier SG.
Healthier SG, right? So would you say that lifestyle medicine is the same as preventive health?
It's a sister of preventative health, lifestyle medicine, lifestyle health. So we're thinking about one, to prevent. So that's one thing, maybe preventing medical conditions or health challenges, but also using lifestyle as medicine. So that's where the lifestyle medicine part comes in. Sometimes it's not preventing. You may have type 2 diabetes. So we're thinking, all right, how do we manage and reverse using lifestyle instead of only medication? So it's definitely all linked, but we use different terms depending on the type of professional and the type of specialty.
Right, but it's all holistic. Today, for this episode, we are going to dive into a very huge pain point for almost all of you guys listening on this podcast, which is, why is it that we all seem to gain weight the moment we start working? Personal experiences. This happened to me. I couldn't understand why until many years later when I look back into the causes and I was trying to undo that. But have you experienced the same, or have you noticed the same?
I mean, it's the same for me as well. We blame it on starting a family. We blame it on having kids. We blame it on getting married, and therefore we are not so focused on how we look, right, and what we eat. And also, I think the busyness of work and stress, I think that's one of the key factors.
But you are a former ex-athlete.
Yes.
Right. So wouldn't that awareness or weight gain be lesser than us average folks, non-athletes folks?
When I was playing competitively, training, I was 78, 80 kilos. Today, now I'm 82, 83. I wish that I can go back to my 78, but it's been difficult to go below 80 all these 15 or more years since I stopped playing competitively. So I think it's lifestyle dependent. There's definitely less time. Lifestyle actually very relevant too, having Arun with us today. So the lifestyle does not allow me to put in as much time to exercise. And because of the lifestyle also, I guess, certain nutrition or diet is not kept strict enough. But I'm okay with this 3 kg above that 80.
Yeah, 3 is okay lah. Mine was 20.
That's because of childbirth and all of that, right?
But prior to childbirth, I was already gaining a lot of weight in the workforce. We will talk about it later. But Dr. Arun, what about your observations?
At least I think I know as much as I need to be able to maintain my weight. But when the stress kicks in and you start giving in to certain cravings, it can be very difficult. Even knowing how certain foods affect the different parts of my organs and molecularly how they're affecting me, that does not really stop me from wanting those things. So knowledge sometimes, of course, is a great thing to start with, but having that purpose and reminding yourself of the why is a really important part of it. So we can talk about this today. We'll talk about the knowledge, but one thing I definitely want to take away is the purpose part, which is something I work on to remind myself that in order to stay fit, to continue having muscle mass, to have strong bones, you have to keep working on it forever.
One of the things that I had to fix, which I realized was actually contributing to my weight gain, was this habit I developed of comfort eating. So as I got more stressed, stress. And actually, I blame childbirth and breastfeeding because it all started when I was told to eat more so that the baby would grow. And then it became a habit. Once it becomes a habit, it's very hard to kick. And then later on in the fourth trimester, I'm sure a lot of you guys who are females and breastfeeding can concur. In the fourth trimester, when you're breastfeeding, your body gets so hungry, it creates that grr sound, you know? So you would have to eat in order to produce milk because if you don't have milk, and then everyone looks at you and questions, right? So that made the habit even longer for the period of time. And by the time I discovered it, it was a really hard habit. It was a really hard habit to kick. But understanding that was a major reason why I was gaining weight and not losing it, I resolved that, okay, I have to stop this habit of comfort eating. So I started finding better ways to deal with my stress rather than just eating. Would that be something that you're also seeing?
Yeah, so I think the stress eating part of it, when I do give talks on lifestyle strategies, stress is a large part of it. But sometimes the room is pretty split on how stress affects eating. So it can be stress eating, but also being so stressed that you don't eat.
Oh yes, I know of a friend who was like that. She lost all her weight because she was so stressed that she didn't eat.
So that's me. When I'm stressed out, I don't really eat.
But that's not healthy either,
We
right?
can tell he's not very stressed today.
Feeling good, yeah. I'll be eating later. So it can be unhealthy as well. That's why stress itself in its more detrimental forms can make you do certain things that are both bad for your physical and mental health. I think you're absolutely right that the cycle of stress eating and then being slightly satisfied initially from the food you're eating, and then sometimes the guilt that comes after that adds its own level of stress. But it's just about mindfulness here that, yes, this is what's happening. This is how I am coping with my stress, and I need to break the cycle this way. That's usually the first step. So it's good that you actually started realizing it. But of course, there are a lot of things going on, right? So it's easy for me to say you need to break the cycle, but there are a lot of things around the stress that we need to work on.
So I run an e-commerce business. Your problem is comfort eating, stress eating. They know it, but it's very hard to break out of it. I'm sure you have clients like that as well, right? How do you advise them, or how are you successful in getting them to break that habit?
Can I also just want to point about the nurses in the hospital? Because when I was a medical student, let's say on a labor ward where it's nearly 24 hours, there's levels of stress going up and down throughout the day. It is important to provide the welfare for all medical staff and healthcare staff in the hospital. So sometimes there's food provided. But often when I walk into the pantry,
It's pizza.
it's cookies, it's chocolate, it's Coke. And while these things are still, I don't say that you shouldn't have them at all, but what do you expect people to do at that point after a long day and they're stressed out? They're going to have more of it. So it becomes a constant cycle. But I also understand that when I've had this discussion with some office managers, they're like, if I put out fruit and healthy food, a lot of people won't be happy.
Yeah.
So it is a very tough line now. Yeah, we've treated people with these things. Just continue doing it because that's how we treat. So that, when we bring over stuff to people's houses, we're bringing chocolate and we're bringing delicious stuff. See, we do it because it's good comparable. So I think it's also changing a little bit of how we think about providing for people. At least one thing that I realized in the hospital that makes it very difficult. And just to say, the hospital environment is also can be, people are not drinking enough water, hardly any breaks. So that's its own thing. In order to break behavior change, at least for my own clients, it's really about understanding where they are today, so their current state, and where they want to be, so that dream outcome. And I think a lot of people think they are at a certain place and they think they want certain things, so then they create this bridge. But the reason why a lot of times it doesn't work out is because they've not fully understood the challenges that they have today. So they say they want to lose 5 kilos. So they say they're going to hire a personal trainer. But sometimes you might need to see a therapist. Sometimes you might need to spend more time with your loved ones. And so you really have to think, what are the actual habits you need to do? Not just running, not just restrictive dieting. It's really about understanding where you're.
A lot of people, we would just think of, especially if you're in an environment where you need to just survive. So if let's say, I can imagine if I was a nurse in a labor ward and the life of that newborn, as well as the mom who has just given birth, is resting on my hands, I'll be so stressed. I'll go to the pantry and I'll eat the chocolates. My friends all know me, I'm a epic chocoholic, right? And I would just care about, like you said, the office manager told you it makes people happy. Putting like salads and broccoli is not going to make people happy. So I would just do that. And to overcome that requires an immense amount of willpower to resist the short term with an eye for the long term gain. That can be extremely difficult for people to achieve on a day-to-day basis. How do you help your clients to overcome that?
It takes a long time. I can say it over and over again. I don't promote quick fixes because even though they may fix certain things from the start, if you don't try to understand how you got to this place in the first place, then those things come back to us. That's why we understand that even though you create this weight loss over maybe 6 to 12 months, the likeliness of people putting on that weight is really high. This is where you really have to kind of slowly start to build one habit, 2 habits at a time. And I usually recommend to most people, try not to make 2 habit changes in a month. Sometimes that's not, maybe improve your sleep by waking up at the same time and then having 5 to 10 servings of fruit and vegetables first. I mean, those 2 things can help a lot of people make a lot of positive changes in their lives. But if you just focus on those 2 things, then you don't have to think, I have to run more, and then I now have to walk more, and then we get overwhelmed.
I think having that awareness is the first step, right? And then if you don't have a coach, it's difficult to actually keep that motivation. And a lot of people also have the misconception that it's expensive. If I have a coach for nutrition, I have a coach for physical training, if I have a coach for this, I have multiple coaches, my salary can't afford to pay for that. But I like this point where you mentioned just 1 habit a month, right? And being able to identify that. What is a good source for people to actually get more of this information? Because, of course, you can Google it. Key opinion leaders are talking about it all the time, but which are good, legit sources that people can go to for such information?
I think to your point about personal trainers and certain coaches being a little bit expensive, I think of it as motivation, knowledge, and accountability. The 3 domains that help you achieve your goals. So a lot of people are motivated. They're like, okay, I want to make this change because of some trigger in their lives. It could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, whatever it is, it's motivation. Then we seek out all this knowledge, so like this podcast and other resources online, social media. But then you have the issue of noise. So on TikTok, for example, there's a lot of things we use. There are many hundreds of different things to lose weight on. A lot of things I don't believe in, and a lot of things that science does not support. But how do you actually know what is right and what is wrong when you're constantly being told that, oh, this will be bad for you, that's not good enough? So you must start to find the right people online that you trust, and you must really do some background research to understand why they're saying this information. What are they selling? What are they financially motivated for saying such things? That's the truth. And that's okay that people are financially motivated for certain things. If it aligns to you, that's perfect. But you have to look at it. And that's the knowledge part. Finally, the accountability part. Yes, you may not be able to afford a coach, which is expensive in Singapore, but classes, your friends, your family, walking groups, all these HPB initiatives are all many ways to be accountable. And I think that's what it is. You are paying someone to actually keep you accountable, not so much maybe to give you all the knowledge, because the knowledge will be given within the first few sessions. After that, you are showing up because this person has showed up and you've paid for it, so you're going to show up. But you can do that for a cheaper price, even for free. But you have to build that accountability circle.
I want to touch on this because Budget Babe, right? So Budget Babe to the rescue on cost. And I went through the same journey, right? And I lost weight twice because 2 kids makes sense. First journey was I consulted a doctor. And at that time, my BMI was above 27. So he could prescribe me the weight loss drugs. I'm not going to name them on this podcast because I do not encourage them. It had really bad side effects. But when I look at the cost of the doctor's consultation and the pills, which was like $2 per pill, I had to take multiple a day, right?
Can you tell us a bit about the side effects though?
I'm not a science expert, but I've done enough research and the conclusions are not fixed either. Because there's a lot that scientists don't know. But there are a lot of theories whereby people believe it messes with the brain. So there's this thing called GLP, which is what the latest weight loss drugs in the US, Ozempic and the rest are all targeting. And they do it with an injection to the tummy. And initially they thought that all the chemical changes were happening in the tummy because that's where the GLP receptors are. But later on, scientists discovered that there's GLP receptors in the brain. So now in the hindbrain specifically, that processes taste and a lot of the sensations and the reward system that runs out through our life, like the motivation and that reward and happiness that we feel when our kids smile at us, stuff like that. So there's still a lot of studies being conducted right now as to whether these interfering with these GLP receptors is actually at the chemical, biological level or you're actually messing with your brain.
Right.
My theory as someone who went through it, I suspect it's the brain. But of course, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I don't know. But that's why actually I don't recommend. But in terms of that cost, so doing that is already expensive, right? It's like the medical intervention. And then the second time around, I didn't use that because I was like, I remember how bad I felt and how terrible it was when I was on those pills. I do not want to do it again. So I try to do the natural method, which is everyone tells you, eat better and exercise. So I went to hire a personal trainer. It was expensive. I signed up for a gym membership, I hired a personal trainer. And then I realized shortly after that the personal trainer was mainly there to to just help me learn what to do and which angle so that I wouldn't get injured. Because I was very heavy at the time. Yeah, I was like close to 70 kg. My joints can't really take it, But after getting through learning how to use the machine, and also paiseh, to ask the gym rats, can you teach me how to use the machine? So I saw it as paying money to have a teacher teach me how to operate the machine so I could use it later on for myself. And after the first 4 sessions, the PT then asked me, do you want to continue? And I said, no, I think I'm good, because I didn't need an accountability partner. I needed a teacher who was specific to me and my body type and how I angled myself. So I think like when it comes to cost, there are a lot of quick fixes that you can just throw money at to get the solution. But if someone is on a budget like me, you can actually focus only on the main problems that you really need to throw money to solve. And for me, was that knowledge gap. Don't know how to use the machine. Nope. Right? But accountability, no need. I'm my own accountability partner. But if someone lacks both, for example, then yeah, I love what you say. Get a spouse, a friend, right? Or even an app. Have you drank 2 liters of water today? The app notification about for free. Yeah. And I think that's one way that people can look around getting over the cost.
I think there are more than enough resources for us to get it done. In Singapore, especially, it's everywhere. It's just finding the things that you really need to do and also make it easier for you. Like you said, solve your problem, but also close to you and convenient. So if you can find those things, then it is accessible.
Hey, Arun, I wanted to ask you this question. Research and stats actually show that 60% of Singaporeans gain up to 3 kg year on year in the first 8 years when they graduate and they start work. What are your thoughts and views on that?
24 kg.
Yeah, in 8 years. I'm sure it's on average, right? But I think we see people walking around and we probably, if we compare how they look like in university to how they look now, it's probably going to be quite a stark difference.
Yeah, and I think we have to look at it as a life transition. So after maybe uni or when you do start working, your whole routine changes. So you need to create something new. But nutrition is a huge part of staying healthy and maintaining weight. And so when we think about it, depending on how we work and the timings we work, how we go into work, how we come back, how many decisions around food do we make? And I believe that even though the other aspects of lifestyle is important when it comes to managing weight and weight loss, we make too many decisions on nutrition. And when we have to do it throughout the day for breakfast, for tea time, lunchtime, where to eat, snack time, this is where it makes a lot of sense that we're gaining about 3 kilos a year. Some people a lot faster in the first few years.
Help me understand that. What do you mean by we make too many decisions on nutrition on a daily basis?
Like, let's say for two of you, when you think about exercising, you're probably going to exercise once, maybe twice, some people. When we think about food, we're thinking whether to eat something or not eat something quite often through the day, depending on the type of work you do.
Right, and there's also snack time. It's not just the 3 meals, but it's also snack. What should I have
also
for coffee?
coffee.
Yeah. What should I have with my
or
coffee?
Without milk?
So you're constantly deciding throughout the day. And so it is difficult to say no constantly, right? So sometimes, and then, okay, so that's decisions you have to make throughout the day. Let's say you make 10 decisions a day.
I think it's more than that actually.
More than that,
okay,
maybe
10. Let's
10.
give it
Let's
10.
say 10. Okay, that's on a normal day. A good day is 10 decisions a day. Let's say you had bad sleep. You're not feeling good. You're craving for more food. Those 10 decisions, how many of those are actually the optimal decisions and how much are suboptimal? So I'm
and
not going to
also
use
peer pressure. Hey, I just came back from Japan. You want this?
Exactly. So I'm going to think of it as not good and bad. Okay, it's not good and bad decisions. I will think of it as optimal, suboptimal.
Right.
All right. So because it depends on your lifestyle and your health. You're making all these decisions, but if your day is not going well, you're stressed out, you've got a lot of things going on at home, maybe all 10 decisions might be suboptimal. And if you stack this on day to day, 5 days a week at the office, whatever you do on the weekend, and then you add things like alcohol, it makes sense. It does. And for all of us of our lifestyle. So one thing that also you have to think about is, let's say you're taking MRT to work. If you're going through a mall, that, the food bit right beside the MRT, maybe you can, when you're going to work, it's closed. But when you come back, can you really resist the smell of that bread or everything that's coming
or the
towards you?
famous Amos cookie smell.
Everything, look, it's all engineered for us to decide, which is not always bad. But if you've made 7 suboptimal decisions throughout the day, and at the end of the day, you're supposed to resist it one more time.
So it's counterproductive. You decide to take a bus and a train to work because you want to get more steps in, but you have to walk through all that F&B and be tempted. But if you take a Grab in direct to the office, you don't eat, you don't get tempted.
No, but I think it's true, because one thing that I notice is that everyone always tells me, when I ask them, what is your ideal weight? They always give me a number that's their university years. I mean, to be fair, that was also, okay, my target was my wedding day first lah. Then I shifted that down to uni, then JC. And I'm so proud to say that I hit my JC weight. So my uni friends who meet me now, I like to say, do I look smaller than JC? They're like, yeah, how come? Do I look smaller than when you knew me in uni? Yeah, how come? Because I'm JC weight now. One thing I always caution them when they first tell me, it's not that it's unrealistic, but I point out that you need to recognize the way I did was that when I desired to get back to my uni weight, the factors that existed in my uni do not exist anymore now. I was staying in hall with a friend who was running up and down the Nanyang Hill very often. So it was a bit of peer pressure, like, oh, she ran for Nanyang Hill, she comes back sweaty. I better go and exercise. I also go and run. Maybe not the Nanyang Hill, but I run the other side, the more flat terrain, right? And then like when they ate, there was also a lot of social pressure. In uni, the supper culture is very strong, especially the Boon Lay nasi lemak, power nasi lemak. For those of you who study in NTU, wow, you would really give in to that.
In NUS, we have Fong Sing.
Oh, all the uni peer pressure food. They should do like Boon Lay power salad, Hong Sing power salad, broccoli.
Maybe now they have. I don't know. It's been many years since I left
I
university.
think it does change because I recently met a uni kid. When I asked her, because we were at the same event, and she was so picky about the food. She was eating all the healthy options, And then I was like eating the normal stuff. And I was like, hey, you can afford to eat all these. Why are you not? And she was picking all the greens and the fruits. I was like, what? She said like her batch, most of her peers are like that now.
No, but that's a great thing, right? That means that the new generation of young people
Yes.
are a lot more conscious about their nutrition.
But the question then is whether that sustains into when they go into the workforce. Because for me, I hated running when I was in JC. I only ran the compulsory 2.4 that my PE teacher made me do. But then when I went to uni, I was choosing to run myself. I signed up for a gym membership when I was on exchange because I was in the US and everyone there is a gym rat. They literally come to school in their gym clothes. That was the fashion, right? And then, so we were very active in uni, but when you go into the workplace, you're mostly seated. Some people in uni, especially if they stay in hall or they stay in their own apartment, like I did when I was on exchange, we would cook our own meals. But in uni, everything eat out. And there's a lot of fast food restaurants on campus. And then there's also the stress levels. Some people are less stressed in uni because studying is a bit easier than work. For some, it's the opposite. Work is more stressful than uni. So the way they deal with that stress eating is different. In uni, you don't have so many friends saying, hey, I came back from Japan, I came back from here. But at work, you have a lot of colleagues who come back from overseas and they give and put all this food at the pantry. In uni, your networking consists of many things. You have your CCAs together, you have your book clubs and all the other clubs. But at work, your networking is come drink alcohol,
it's
go for
most
beer nights.
F&B related,
Yes,
right?
F&B. So I think it's hard. No wonder they gain 3 kg a year.
I think the inactivity is one, which then I guess leads on to sedentary lifestyle. Then there are all sorts of other habits, whether it's stress or whatever that contributes to that. And I also read recently about this DBS. Have you heard of DBS?
Date bottom syndrome. Yes, I saw
DBS,
that too.
right? So you're seated because of that inactivity, and that then contributes to a whole host of other chronic diseases. Let's talk about chronic disease now, right? So if you don't manage that weight, putting 3 kgs year on year, 8 years is 24 kilos, that's a lot, right? What sort of chronic health issues that this person could potentially be facing?
So let's assume that weight is mostly fat. Okay, so we're thinking of weight gain. I try to think of, are we talking about fat gain? Because there's an important need to build more muscle as well. So,
Right.
but most of it will be fat. Fat that's under your skin that you can see, and also fat that's around your organs, also known as visceral fat. And in general, what we see is an increase of fat. You're not getting taller, so you're pretty much just, your body is taking on whatever fat that you have, increasing the risk of type 2 diabetes, of cardiovascular disease, heart attack, stroke, liver disease, kidney disease.
And the list goes on and on.
It affects your mental health. It affects your self-esteem and confidence. And if you've had life transitions, especially for women, when we think about fertility, pregnancy, and post-pregnancy recovery, there's a lot of things that excess fat can have complications on. And so I try to tell people that you have to understand that being overweight, especially due to fat, can have very serious consequences when you have it early. Even in your teens, if we see obese teenagers, they're increasing their risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and stroke from then on. They're damaging the blood vessels, and not often always their fault. And for teens, maybe it's not even their fault. We're thinking about society, parents, schools, but it is like investing. So this is a financial podcast, right? So we think about it as a debt. The more fat you gain over time, you are collecting this amount of debt that hopefully you can pay off later. But if you don't do it early enough and you collected a lot of it, you just might not. And so investing in your health early and realizing that, I'm putting on this weight, I'm going to stop this now, I'm going to try to reverse it so that you have this healthy, longer life and the reason why you're working so hard. You want to be healthy with your loved ones, so you have to try to tell yourself that.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yeah, now back to the show.
I want to clarify something. Oh, my weight gain is not fat, it's muscle. They're like, great. Is it because you do weightlifting and you work out? They say no. They're like, then how you gain the muscle?
Eat more protein.
Yeah, they eat more protein. Then I'm like, but if you eat more protein and you never work out for your body to convert that into muscle, it will still be fat, right? Can you walk us through the science of that?
We understand body mass index that's been used for a long time. There's a lot of data that says that it can be very helpful, but a lot of people do say that it's not very indicative
Accurate.
of someone's health.
It's true. My husband has an overweight BMI. And then he was like, so am I in trouble? He asked the doctor. The doctor said, oh no, you're great. Then like, but you just told me my BMI is overweight. He went to one of the hospitals to do it. Then the doctor said, yeah, but I can see from your physique. I can see your six packs there. I know it's the muscles. It's not fat. So he said, you're good.
Yeah, muscle needs to be stimulated in order to grow. So it's likely that they would have to do some form of strength training, resistance training in order to build that muscle. But one simple way to just understand is, has your body roundness increased? Because muscle usually doesn't cause roundness around your abdomen. So if you're putting on weight and your waist is getting a lot bigger than your hips, because your hips will not maybe grow as, depending on who you are sometimes, but looking at a waist to hip ratio, if that is changing, then you're increasing your risk. And I think you can be building muscle, but that may not outdo the metabolic risk that comes with putting more fat around your tummy.
Help us understand nutritionally, how does that work? Okay, I think I have the answer because I did study biology when I was younger. But they say that it's a different macro and only fats, carbs are carbs, fats, protein are protein. But my understanding is that everything in the end will be turned to complex carbs for storage, glycogen, if I remember the term correctly, as well as fat, right? So how does protein turn into this when it's a different macro group?
An excess of nearly anything can turn into fat.
It needs to go into the Krebs cycle.
So there are a few cycles that have traumatized students for years. Remembering a very complex cycle, but the simplest term is that when you drink alcohol, alcohol is a macronutrient. So it's the fourth one after carbs, protein, and fat.
Oh.
So alcohol has 7 calories per gram. So it's not just people think, I drink alcohol, it's the carbs. No, the alcohol itself is caloric. So it's both. And so too much alcohol, too much carbs, too much protein, and too much fat can be stored as fat. So it's not only fat that becomes fat, it's just your body is like, yeah, I don't really have much to do with this. I'm not going to excrete it. I'm going to save it for when you need it, which is an amazing mechanism of our body. So I think putting on weight, we think of it as, oh, it's a horrible thing, but it's something our body does because it's trying to protect us. But we don't live the lives that we used to live thousands of years ago. So
we don't hibernate.
Right. Our food is constant. There's no long periods without food, right? So that's why, it's important to have more protein because you need it to build muscle. But if you're having too much and you're not training and you're having too much food in general, then, it may be stored as fat.
Yeah, so all of you we're calling out the BS, okay? Just because you eat protein but never do weightlifting, never exercise, that does not turn into muscle in your body, it's fat. Okay, next question then is, what do you think about a calorie deficit or the weight gain that has come about from the corporate life? Right? Most people, they reach a stage where they eventually realize, hey, I need to lose weight. And then that's when Facebook and Google will start feeding you all the ads. Brand A, B, C, D, E, F, fat diet, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, right? And the way I look at it, because I was also fed that same data when I decided I wanted to lose weight. But the way I looked at it is that every single diet has just one thing in common. It's just a calorie deficit. You go on a deficit, your body then burns your existing fat stores for energy, and then you lose the weight. But one thing that some diets or brands claim is that, oh no, it's not a calorie deficit at all. It is about the ingredients and the supplements that burn visceral fat. Is that even possible?
I think the short answer is probably no, but I think we have to look deeper into what these diets do, as you said. Okay, so I just want to break it down into 3 things. Your metabolism, and when we think about fat burning, comes under 3 domains. So the first one is the thermogenic effect of food. So when you consume, eat, and digest food, your body burns calories. The three of us are sitting here talking. There's this thing called a basal metabolic rate, which is our body is burning calories just by being here.
And both of you are burning more than me now because you clearly have more muscles.
And we are heavier.
True.
So yeah, depending on your body type, just lying in bed all day will burn 1,000 plus calories.
That's not an excuse to sleep and lose weight.
Yeah, yes. So if you laid in bed, and then physical activity is on top of that. So us walking around, fidgeting at our seat, running, strength training. So those are the three domains. So thermogenic effect of food, basal metabolic rate, and physical activity.
How about using our brain? That comes under
A mix of probably
Metabolic.
physical activity plus basal metabolic rate. So if you're thinking more, you will burn on top of what you usually need to function. Think, study more, whatever. So these are all very important things. So what people then do is that we think about the calorie deficit as a way, either we try to increase the three domains. So a lot of people then think about, okay, I'm going to just do more physical activity so that I can increase the amount of calories that I burn per day. And then I'm going to eat less. So there's the deficit between the two. That's what it is. And so a lot of diets do help you get into the deficit with the intake so that it's below your expenditure. But one thing people don't realize is that over time, if you exercise a lot, there might be a limit to how much you will be burning calories because your body then starts reducing its BMR. So the calories that we burn while sleeping and just sitting down here may start to reduce to compensate for the fact that you're trying to burn too much calories. And then by eating less food, your body also then tries to go down together with it.
To become more efficient at using less calories
Yeah,
for
it's not trying to, because it's like, why are you eating less? Okay, should we be burning less? So there is a mechanism in there that's going on. We try to hack it in many different ways. But our bodies do try to fight our changes. And that's why very quick changes, we may seem like you're losing a lot of weight, which is good, but your body may catch up. If you've not made behavioral changes and lifestyle changes, when you're not able to sustain this fat diet or whatever diet that you've embarked on, a lot of things then come back.
There's a lot of research around these. And the stat that I'm seeing is that 80% of people who do lose weight,
they rebound.
And they either gain it all back in a really short period of time or they gain back even more than what they lost. Is that why?
This is the thing. If you don't try to think about what has triggered you to get you into this place in the first place, then when your motivation levels to keep a certain diet start to wane and you start giving in to some of the habits that were sort of leading you up to it, yeah, it comes back. I think that's really what it is. It's not so much that the diet didn't work, but so much that it's very hard to sustain. And like you said, most diets work because they are at a calorie deficit. But the best diets are probably the ones that are both healthy to you and also something that you can flexibly sustain for as long as possible.
Sustainability is the key thing.
What I'm picking up is healthy to you because everyone is different. Everyone's lifestyle is different. Everyone's stress levels are different. So you need to work out something that works best for you as an individual, right? So what works for you might not work for me. It's really about tailoring that.
Which is why people ask me, like, should I low carb, intermittent fasting, keto, vegan? I mean, what are your goals? What do you really want to achieve? And what is your health profile and your medical conditions? This doesn't sound good on social media. But if it was social media, it'd be like intermittent fasting for you, 8 hours, 16 hours fasting. Easy. Can search, that's what it is. But it gets a little more complex when I talk about this because you have to try things out. It's really important to think about what is known to be a safe diet. There's several safe diets, but when we also think about it, lots of fruits and vegetables, fiber, protein, healthy fats pretty much make up the general gist of good diet. If you try to restrict yourself and go into restrictive diet and say, I'm not going to eat carbs at all, how long can you do that? Especially in Singapore, how long can you not eat rice, noodles?
I tried before.
bread?
It's difficult.
It's very
tough.
hard.
Even when I half load my noodles and half load my rice. But look at my weight. It's been very constant at 82, 83. Sometimes I'm eating more. Sometimes I'm back to normal. But I also understand that the body actually goes back into balance mode despite certain ups and downs of it could be binge eating or it could be just slightly dieting or eating less. Yeah, so I think that's great.
On the topic of IF, intermittent fasting, this is also a very contentious area of debate because we do not have to do IF in order to lose weight. And in fact, there's also a fat diet called eating 5 to 6 meals a day, So if IF is true for the entire population, then how would that fat diet achieve the results that it did?
But the 5 to 6 meals are very low calorie.
Correct. But
right?
the point is that it's not about the time window as what the IF advocates are saying. It's also about how much you take in. I tried IF, right? And my personal experience, like what you said, finding what works for you, I just couldn't do it. Number one, my favorite meal of the day is breakfast. I love breakfast food. You want to get scrambled eggs, you go to anywhere, they only serve it during breakfast hours, right? My favorite McDonald's meal is the muffin, which only exists during breakfast hours. So for me to cut out and do IF is super hard. And the second thing is I realized is when you're doing IF, for myself especially, my stomach would really growl because the time window to not eat is just too much. And when it growls, what happens then is that first meal that I eat, I just go crazy. And that's why I was like, okay, I can't do IF. I'm going to go back to eating 3 meals a day, but I'll eat more healthy meals, calorie deficit, monitor. I don't eat like 3 times 800 calories meal. I moderate it, right? But what is your view on IF versus a calorie deficit? Do you need to be in IF to get into calorie deficit? Is IF really that hyped up as what everyone says? Because that's what social media tells us.
When we look at the studies, okay, let's say caloric restriction is what you need to do. Okay, whether it's IF or it's eating throughout the day. So caloric restriction. So the IF versus eating throughout the day, both in the same caloric restriction, does not show a very significant benefit on either one for weight loss. But this goes back to your point. If you do intermittent fasting and you eat less, but then every time you open up a meal over time, you are mentally struggling in the morning because you can't concentrate. But I think you have to understand why you're doing the IF, because if you're trying to lose weight, you can definitely overeat in 4 hours. You definitely can, depending on your size and how much activity you do. Let's say if your maintenance is 1,400 calories, even at fast food, you can hit very close to 1,400 quite quickly.
1 meal can already.
There's certain meals that you like McDonald's fries, close to 500 already. If you got a drink and a burger, you're already close to that. So you can do it very quickly. That's why intermittent fasting depends on why you're doing it. And for me personally, not sure if you're doing it, Alex, but for me, it really is about enjoying 2 bigger meals instead of 3 smaller meals. Because if I ate 3 meals the same size as I do eat lunch and dinner, I won't be able to maintain weight. I can't out-exercise 3 big meals. And I think the whole idea of having to eat breakfast is not a rule for everyone. It really depends on you. If you really can't concentrate because you're not having breakfast, then that's perfectly fair. For me, I concentrate better when I don't eat in the morning. And so you have to find your way. And intermittent fasting itself is not always just about skipping breakfast. You can also skip dinner. But then there's a social risk to not having dinner, especially with your family, right? So you kind of have to work it out. Or maybe just have breakfast and dinner. But then technically that's not intermittent fasting because you're opening up the window every 12 hours. But see, you have to do it.
So on the topic of intermittent fasting, they try a calorie deficit, but then they feel their stomach rifting around and that the stomach acid is burning their stomach walls, their gastric, the stomach lining, and that they feel very faint. Is that really true?
It is possible. And we think about it as the digestive system, which starts at the mouth, and we all know where it ends. We think about the throat, the esophagus, stomach, and the intestines. So there are many areas that you can feel sensations around your body because you're not eating. When we think about the grumbling, it often happens closer down to your tummy, which is where your intestines are. Yeah.
So it's not the stomach.
It's unlikely to be your stomach. So you may be feeling pain because of like a heartburn or acid reflux, and you also may feel grumbling, but maybe they're in different places. And that could be because you're not eating, but there are many other reasons why you have increased hunger as well, such as being stressed.
Or the body signal, like you said.
Yeah, if you're not sleeping well, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why our body signals. And I think a lot of us, maybe some of you, both of you or anyone listening, that having a really tough time in your life may increase your acid reflux. You may feel like, oh, you need to have more of the antacids because there are a lot of things. So it's not maybe just about food. And the thing about fainting, that's another thing. Yes, not eating enough, not drinking enough water may cause fainting feelings due to volume changes in your blood and other reasons as well. Because fainting is not just because of food. So it can be multiple things. And I would say that if you are feeling faint quite often and you're not making too many changes with your life, it is good to see a doctor. Because fainting isn't just about, I have low blood sugar, I'm going to have some sweet and I'll be okay.
It could be others, right? I also have heard of cases whereby because especially for females, if your iron levels are low and you're not eating enough like red meat, or my mom used to say eat liver to replenish those iron levels, you would feel faint also. It's not just about calories.
It is possible, but that's where health screenings all come in. There are a lot of people that don't do health screenings, and especially after 30, it can be really beneficial to do it at least once a year. It's kind of like if you don't check your bank account and then you're surprised there's no money left and you don't check how much you're spending. It's if you check your health, either your iron levels or your blood count or your blood sugar levels every 1 year, you can make changes the moment that you see it. You should know what's going on, and you should have a doctor that's like your co-pilot so that they can help you adjust your health from 30 to 40, 40 to 50. So having this person there that's making adjustments can really help.
Can you both encourage people to go for health screening? Okay, I share the reservations. I'm one of those. Number one is cost, right? It really is expensive in Singapore. Even my GP, which I would assume is cheaper than the hospital, I sent my husband to a hospital health screening. It was really expensive, 4 digits. I went to the GP, it was high 3, but it's still very expensive for most people. So cost could be one. The other factor is also for the health screening to happen, they usually require you to fast before that and draw blood. And that is quite prohibitive to a lot of people. What advice or motivation or encouragement would you give to help people overcome these barriers to going for health screening?
I think I'll start first, right? Most companies actually have a health screening component that is part of employee benefit, right?
But they don't use it. Many employees
so
don't
that's
use
something
it.
that you should use if you already have that privilege. Of course, you might want to top up for certain things. The fasting part, I think I'll leave it to Arun to share, right? I understand that there are certain markers that you don't actually need to have checked, and therefore you don't actually need to have that fasting. It really depends, but I'm in my 40s already, right? So for me, cancer markers is always something that I'm checking. So every year I will check. Every year I will check. I think 3 years ago, I went to a cardiologist because I was feeling pain in my chest. I thought I was having a heart attack. Thankfully, it wasn't. It was just an inflammation of the rib cage. Yeah, so it's good to check. I think that if we have the future ahead of us and if we have children or loved ones that we are caring for and that we want to be cared for, that is our responsibility to them with the health screening.
Okay, when we think about health screening, let me just say that I don't sell health screenings and I don't make anything from what I'm about to say. For me right now, it's every 6 to 12 months I'll get a health screening, but I won't get a full health screening in that time. So actually what a lot of people don't realize is that you can go to your local GP, whichever neighborhood around this country, ask for what you want, and you may not pay a lot. But if you go find these packages, which are in the hundreds of dollars, platinum package, queen package, and whatever it is, they may be very helpful for someone who doesn't know what to ask. But eventually, you can ask for what you want.
But I think the barrier is that most people don't know what they want or need.
For the first few years, you may not. But over time, this is like anything else, making financial decisions. You can't say, we're not telling people, oh, we're trying to teach financial freedom and financial literacy. Health screening and health literacy has to be one of them. We cannot get away and say that, I just don't know what to test. You should know what to test over time. And that's why we're doing these things, and we need more doctors and other health professionals to educate. So let's say in your case that you're saying, if we do things like cholesterol, blood sugar, and a few other basic things, you definitely can get it under $100. I even work with clinics that we can get it for about 70 plus. And if you do that once a year, there are a lot of people that don't want to spend that. But then I ask you, how much is a nice dinner out and alcohol in one night? There are a lot of people spending the health screening money in a day. And I know that there's nothing wrong with doing that, but you have to understand in the long term, the 70 divided by 365 days, depreciate the cost, and then think about the cost of medication if you don't check it. So it's an investment.
I do have one last question. I think we can go on for hours on this topic and we would love to have you back on another episode. But one last thing we could get your thoughts on is for networking events, a lot of us corporate professionals, we have to go for them and we get exposed to a lot of indulgent food and alcohol at these events. And it's sometimes viewed as socially rude to not partake in them. How can we then strike a balance between going for this and not having our career be at a detrimental state versus not letting our health at risk?
So if you have to really do this, which I completely understand and I enjoy it as well, then you need to reduce something somewhere else in the day. So if you know you already have something planned on a Thursday night, maybe lunchtime have some nuts and some fruit. That's what it is. And I think you just have to know that you're going to overindulge, but it's technically not overindulging if you balance it out in the hours prior to that, and maybe even the next day as well. So it's really just balancing it out. And we can talk a lot about alcohol and its effects, but in general, if you have to do it, it's part of our social structure and you're doing it with the people you care about, or it's for business, then just have to balance it out. You need to. So absolutely continue doing it. Don't feel restrictive at these events because it's very hard, right? Then you're thinking, oh, I can't do that, but then this person wants me to eat this thing or drink this thing.
I like that. And that's a takeaway for me because the prevention as opposed to the aftermath. So you don't lead your life normal and then you go binge eat, you go for a party, and after that you feel guilty about that and then do all sorts of changes to try and make up for that. But if you already know and you anticipate, then you prevent that. so you don't feel just as bad and life goes on normal.
What a great way to wrap up our episode. If you guys would like to see Dr. Arun come back for another episode, just drop in your feedback or comments below on what you'd like to see him back on. And we're going to wrap up this episode with one final takeaway from everyone. I think my most important takeaway here is that it's really just everything in moderation. And it is not about using quick fixes, but something that I love the word you say, sustainable. Lifestyle change that is sustainable.
Well, for me, it's about micro steps, right? When you talked about waking up the same time for 2 weeks, right? That in itself is a micro change. And the last thing that you mentioned, which was the prevention for that big day, as opposed to thinking about what to do after that. Yeah, so those are my takeaways.
Is there one last takeaway that you want everyone to know?
It's important to experiment on yourself. Life gets hard and sometimes you feel like, what do I do? What works? But just remember that sometimes you just have to try certain things, take it for a few weeks, and then make some changes. And our bodies will react in different ways. And just hopefully don't feel too down or guilty for your choices, because you can always try again another time. So
Love
give yourself
it.
a long period to optimize your health, because we do have a long road ahead.
Very nice.
Love it.
Yeah.
And that's us for this episode of Wise and Shine. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.